And that's what we're here for, giving and taking.
Eavesdroppin.
Hello, Michelle.
Georgette. Hello.
Oh. How you diddling?
Diddle-a-doodlin'. That's how I roll.
You diddle and doodle all day long. Fiddle and faddle. Oh, fiddle faddle.
Oh, my God, don't say fiddle. Fiddle is a terrible word. I don't like that word.
What about if you're playing the fiddle?
Yeah, that's okay.
You're allowed to play the fiddle.
Having a fiddle. It's a bit...
Not good, is
I
it?
don't know, it's a bit strange.
No.
It's not good. It's one of those words.
My aunt used to say, oh, fiddle faddle, for nonsense.
Did she not say fiddlesticks?
And she didn't say bullshit.
Oh, fiddlesticks.
Yeah, fiddlesticks, my mum would say that. Yeah, so fiddles must have been big in that household, I'd say. Oh, by the way, guess what, Michelle? You're Michelle.
And you're Geordie.
And together we're Eavesdroppin', the comedy weekly podcast.
Can't you tell?
Yes, and you're here for the ride.
Yes.
Well done.
Well done, you, for finding us. Well done, you, for listening. Well done, you, for being an eavesdropper, because that's what you are.
And we're going to reward you with about 50-odd minutes of pure nonsense and a bit of grim murder this week.
We have got murders.
Murder's on the mind.
Murders on the mind.
Why do people like to listen to murders and watch murders and, read about true crime and moida?
You know, it's a question that we sort of looked into the ethics of when we had our collab with the midlifers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think it's partly a learning experience? Like, okay, if I was ever in that situation, here's what I would do in terms of I'd get my lawyer, I know my rights. I mean, all of these things, I feel like it's case law. We're learning
maybe
how to deal with stuff. Hopefully none of us or our eavesdroppers will ever be in a situation where they've committed murder and need all of that. But yes, I don't know. I feel like we learn something every time we do this.
We learn, or we want to flex those investigative muscles, perhaps, or those psychological profiling muscles, perhaps. My daughter often says to me, what would you do if we were in a zombie apocalypse? Or how long do you think we'd last if, Last of Us was real? Things like that. Things I don't like to answer.
Okay. I mean,
these awful morbid questions about what if. I don't want to go there.
Well, I mean, zombie apocalypse, I feel like I don't even bother because it's never going to happen.
Hopefully.
No, zombies don't exist.
They're my worst fear. I hate them so much that I'm really horrified. I can watch a vampire film. I can watch Jaws film. I can't watch a zombie film. I really struggle to sit through The Last of Us.
I haven't even bothered watching because I feel like even with that Quentin Tarantino film that turned into like Zombie Nightmare, whatever it was called.
You mean the vampires?
Was it vampires? Whatever it was.
It was vampires. Dusk Till Dawn. I was thinking about watching that with my daughter, yeah.
Well, do you know what? The first part of that, when it was just a great film, I was so into it. Then...
A great film? They were two awful men, Clooney and Tarantino, who'd kidnapped a woman and were torturing her.
Yes, but what I mean, it was just
great.
A normal film. I wasn't necessarily talking about the subject matter, but it was just a normal great film with twists and turns, and then it just turned into rubbish. A little bit like I felt The Substance. It was kind of chugging along, just being a good normal film, and then it just became ridiculous. I'm just not into it.
What would you rather watch? A nice, peaceful, romantic comedy? La La Land, perhaps? I haven't seen that yet. I heard it's really good.
Well, I heard that it's just too much dancing.
Oh.
What would I like to watch? I just like good dramas. I like a TV series.
Yes, I do.
Like I've said, Better Call Saul, one of the best things I've watched since probably Mr. In Between. Absolutely thought it was fantastic, genius. It had everything you could want from a TV show. I like high quality dramas with a bit of comedy thrown in.
So highbrow, Michelle.
How about you?
Well, at the moment, I do love a police procedural, but I'm lacking in those right now. But at the moment, we've just started watching Andor, which is on the Disney Channel. It's one of those Star Wars things. And apparently it's very good. We saw the first few episodes a long time ago, but we're having to give it another go because we dropped it accidentally, picking it back up now. But speaking of films and television stars, my postie came round yesterday and he had a few things to tell me.
What did he tell you? Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan. He said he knows of loads of celebrities who live in my area because he listened to our episode recently where we reeled off, my Mick Hucknall experience and Janine from EastEnders and all that kind of thing. Well, he said he knows all of them because, of course, he delivers their letters, Michelle.
Of course he does. He knows all the secrets.
He does, but good luck to our international listeners or anyone under the age of 45 because it's a very niche group of celebrities that I have in my immediate area. They're quite 70s, light entertainment or comedians that you'd only see on British TV shows. So here we go. We've got Linda LaPlante.
Don't know her.
She's the writer of all those, I think is it Bonkbusters or is
Oh
it TV
my
shows that we
God,
probably
yes.
watch? Do a quick Google, you'll find out Linda LaPlante. Jimmy Tarbuck. Now, he is definitely a 70s light entertainment character, but his wonderful daughter, Lisa Tarbuck, who does a BBC Two Saturday night show, she is my absolute fave, and I like to think that we're a little bit like her style wise. I think if you like Eavesdroppin, you're going to like Lisa Tarbuck. Dan also mentioned just now, he's just texted me an extra one, which is Ronnie Woods from the Rolling Stones.
I've met him.
And I do know from listening to Lisa's show that he lives up the road from the Tarbucks.
I see. Well, I've met him. I had my photo taken with him. He came to some of our shows because his daughter's band back in the day was supporting us. So, yes, he was quite nice. He was friendly.
Wonderful. Probably very friendly because he does love a lady, doesn't he? Then we've got Declan Rice. Who's that?
Who is that?
I didn't Google him.
Who
I
is
don't know.
he?
Does he mean Damien Rice?
Don't know. I don't know.
He wouldn't get the name wrong because he's delivering the letters and he knows everyone's name.
Exactly.
Then we've got the guy from Brotherhood of Man. It's Eurovision coming up soon. It probably will have been and gone by the time this episode comes out. But Brotherhood of Man were the group that I think they won or came very high up in Eurovision back in the 70s. Save all your kisses for me. Save all your kisses for me.
Well, I know that song.
Bye-bye, baby, bye-bye. That one.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know who
Who
the hell.
would remember what that fella looks like?
No way. Brotherhood of Man. Didn't even know that was a thing. It sounds like a TV show about bikies.
It's making me wonder, Dan, how old are you? I always thought you're quite youthful, but I'm thinking you might have a little secret because they're very 70s references so far. Then there's Ronan Keating. Now, I've said I've seen him before in Putney, so maybe he lives between the areas of southwest London, but maybe he's closer to me than I realise. I haven't seen him since my Putney days. Then we've got, this is random, one of the Bewitched girls. How would you recognise them?
I don't know. Do you know what? He probably knows. Dan probably knows because it says Bewitched when she gets her royalty checks or
her
something.
royalty checks.
So he's having
Yes,
a
of
nosy.
course.
He's having a look. That male.
Dan, is that allowed? Then we've got comedians Andy Parsons, Chris McCausland and John Richardson. Don't think they live together, and Dan even wonders if some of them may have moved away from the area.
Right.
But on the whole, there's those three guys, and you can find them all on various programs like Have I Got News for You, or The Last Leg, or At Home with the Richardsons with John Richardson and his former ex-wife or former wife. And then there's this random name, Kim Tiddy from EastEnders and The Bill. Who's that?
No clue. I'm going to be links aplenty on the old bloody Patreon with this list. Thanks, Dan.
Absolutely. Of course, he's delivered to Janine from EastEnders, and he's also had another run-in with her in McDonald's where they were queuing, and she said, "You smell nice." So he must have had quite the pungent odour about him for her to notice over the stench of the burgers.
Oh, my
But the
God.
best one is Stormzy, who has two big dogs, and I think I've spotted him occasionally
Oh,
because he's
really?
quite an image.
He's got a
And
look.
that's probably the best and most exciting one. So it really is Stella Street round here. Those of you who've ever seen that TV programme starring John Sessions and Phil Cornwall doing celebrity impersonations in a suburb, which is the same suburb that I live in, you will know what I'm talking about. Stella Street, link it. It's funny. In fact, can you please link the Mick and Keith Corner Shop YouTube? There we go.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
I will. And if you don't know what we're talking about, I link it all up on the Patreon. That's where you can pledge a little bit of money to help us keep doing what we're doing. Keep on keeping on.
Pledge it.
Pledge it.
Or just give it to
Yeah.
us.
Give us your money, honey. That's how it goes. But yes, all over on the Patreon. We
give back, Michelle. It's not a one-way street.
Bits and pieces. You get extra over there. It is a bit extra.
We're a bit extra.
We are.
We give you another extra show that you won't find anywhere else.
Yes.
We give you all the bits and bobs that we talk about. We give you all the television recommendations, which Michelle works tirelessly to compile. So if ever you're running out of things to watch, just have a flick through.
Because that's what our eavesdroppers tell us they like. We pop it on the Rex.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, giving and taking.
Speaking of Rex, I did hear that Line of Duty coming back soon.
I heard that. How exciting. Oh, in fact, I almost flooded my drawers when I heard that news.
Oh, my
it's fantastic
God.
news, isn't it? I know. I was beside myself.
Goodness me, that's an extreme response, but fantastic for you. Flood those drawers, Geordie. Flood those drawers.
Is it an extreme response or is it a medical condition?
Look, Line of Duty, for anyone who doesn't know, we're obsessed. And if it really is true that it's coming back, we're going to be all over it. You'll be the first to know.
Maybe we should do a show dumping.
Oh, my God.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, but it is a lot of work. I don't know. We need it. We need more on the Patreon if we're going to do that. Hand in pockets, guys. Hand in pockets if you want to hear our new potential podcast on Line of Duty. Who knows?
But speaking of police work, this week, Michelle, as I've alluded to earlier, it's all about the moida. You know, I'm struck by how a lot of the worst murders that we've ever talked about on this pod take place on or around my birthday, August 10th. If anyone wants to send a card or steal my identity or defraud me, there you go. That's the date. Like Tate LaBianca, that was over the 10th and 11th, I think, of August. It just seems to be the time of year. Is it because it's summer in the Northern Hemisphere and it's madness time, or midsummer? I guess it's directly midsummer, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. In Europe, midsummer, well, it's certainly in Scandinavia, it's June 20. That's actual midsummer, the longest day of the year.
Yes.
In terms of just the idea of it being the middle of summer, you know, you're still getting those lovely warm days. Yeah.
Like maybe hot. But our listener Charlene, who is our number one researcher, and I'll be sad when she gets her own podcast, sent me this bizarre and tragic case, which didn't actually take place on my birthday, but the research that I looked at, it started on that very day, but in 2006, when 23-year-old Christopher Porco was convicted of second-degree murder for the axe murder of his father,
oh my God,
Peter Porco.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And second-degree attempted murder after a similarly brutal attack on his mother, Joan.
Fucking
Porco.
hell. Okay. First of all, can we talk about that name? Porco.
I know.
You're going to get bullied in school with that, unless you are the bully. That's a crazy.
Percy Pig.
Percy Porco. Secondly, I am getting vibes of those other two boys, the hot boys. Menendez. I'm getting Menendez
I
vibes.
bring it up later, Michelle, and you're already bang on it. That's the sort of true crime aficionado enthusiast that you are.
Well, I can't even remember the
Don't
name.
let anyone tell you that you've got to forget. I was going to say, don't let anybody tell you that you can't remember things, babe, because you remembered. And you were hot off the presses there.
Well, I think you remembered the actual name. I'm like, the hot boys. You knew who I meant. You knew who I meant. Fucking hell.
Yeah, well, it's familial murder. It's
Yes.
You're killing your parents. Well, yeah, poor old Joan, his mother, was left severely wounded and permanently disfigured after the attacks. But let me tell you that these attacks were actually committed on November 15th in 2004 at Peter and Joan's home in Del Mar, New York. So far, so gruesome. But wait until I tell you more about this whole thing, and you'll be left scratching your head, Michelle.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the facts from the day are this. Trigger warning, because it's a murder, there will be some descriptions of the murder. Okay? But I won't go too bad.
Okay.
I'm not laughing at, and I'm not laughing with. Okay. The facts from this day are Peter Porco, 52 years old. He's a state court clerk. He was found dead of massive head injuries in his home in Del Mar, New York, like I said. His wife, Joan, at the time was a children's speech pathologist. She was discovered lying in the couple's bed, which was, trigger, drenched in blood. She had severe head trauma, but she still was living. She was alive still.
Oh, my God. Well, I guess she could then say who did it. That's one thing.
You would think so, right? She was badly injured, and poor Joan lost an eye in the attack and part of her skull.
Oh,
it was an axe,
God.
babe. And like I said before, she was severely disfigured after this attack. Here's the weirdest bit, and this is what listener Charlene sent in, and it had me reeling. Even though Peter's injuries were catastrophic, he survived for several hours after the attack. And I can't find out more details about this because I know you're going to have questions. I do.
Yeah.
But apparently he woke up like in the morning or whenever it was. It might have been the morning. It might have just been after the initial attack. And he was, woke up like he thought it was morning. He went about his morning routine.
What?
Yeah. I am assuming that Peter's brain injury was such that he didn't see or comprehend what had happened to him or his wife because he sat down, he wrote a check for his son, Christopher.
What?
He made himself a packed lunch. He even tried to load the dishwasher in the kitchen. Then he went outside to get the newspaper off the lawn. But then he realized he'd locked himself out. I mean, I don't know how he had the presence of mind to do this, but he needed to open the door again, and he knew that there was a spare key hidden somewhere. So he grabbed the spare key, he helped himself back into the house, and then he collapsed and died.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Do you remember when, that whole thing about you cut off a chicken's head and it still keeps running around? This is what I feel like is going on with this guy, except to the extreme. I mean, I guess he didn't brush his teeth and look in the mirror and go, what the fuck is happening to me?
Shit, where's my head?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. The only way that they know all these things have happened is because of the evidence that was left afterwards. There was trails of blood that showed exactly where Peter had gone. When the coroner later examined him, they discovered he'd been bashed in that skull, sorry, trigger warning, 16 times with the axe and was missing part of his jaw. So, Michelle, if he tried to brush his teeth, things probably would have not have computed because half his jaw was missing.
Yeah, or if he'd tried to have that croissant. Not going to happen, mate.
Yeah. It's just really sad. It makes me really sad. The weapon that was used was an axe that actually belonged to the family and it was found in their garage. So police assumed it was a family member and quickly looked at the couple's youngest son, Christopher Porco. He was a student at the University of Rochester, which is 230 miles away from the family home, nearly a 4-hour drive. And he claimed when he was speaking to police that he was there at the Rochester campus when his parents were discovered. And he also said that he only learned of the attack on his parents from a news reporter.
Oh.
So obviously he raced back to Del Mar that very evening. But during the police investigation, it was discovered that Christopher had a history of antisocial behavior. He had also previously broken into his parents' home twice and committed burglaries in November 2002 and July 2003. And he went on to sell the items on eBay.
Right. But didn't you say that the dad, with only half a brain, had written a check to Christopher?
Yeah, to pay for some parking fines. Yeah, he did.
So he's being looked after by his parents. They're clearly looking out for him and trying to take care of him financially.
Pin that.
Pin it. I love that answer.
A month before the attack, both Christopher and his brother Jonathan, because Christopher's the youngest of two boys, Jonathan and Christopher, they both had their eBay accounts frozen because they both had the same address, which was their parents' Del Mar address. And this is because Christopher hadn't sent several items that the buyers had paid for from his account. During the investigation, prosecutors discovered that Christopher had posed as Jonathan and sent emails to these customers telling them that his brother Christopher had died and was unable to deliver the items.
Oh my God.
Good scam, Chris.
Yeah, but then you'd have to give the money back.
Well, you'd think. Posing as Jonathan, he's saying, I don't have that money. My brother has the money and he's now dead. You'll have to wait for, the, what's it called to go through?
Oh my God, yeah.
The will and the prostate. What's it called? Not the prostate. What do they call it?
Oh.
Probate.
The prostate.
Prostate.
The prostate. I mean, I guess most people would think, well, it's a couple of $100. I'll just give up on that. Poor guy, he's dead.
They just think, poor guy. At the trial, it was shown that the security code at the family home had been used to disable the alarm. So Somebody knew the code. And then some hours later, it was discovered that a telephone line outside the house was cut.
Oof.
Hours after the alarm was disabled. So it's believed that Christopher did this to make it look like a burglary gone wrong.
Huh.
See, things between Christopher and his parents had been strained, to say the least, because he'd been on a trip to the UK in 2004, and whilst there, Mum Joan sent him an email telling him right off for flunking community college. She said in this email, "You just left and we can't believe our eyes as I look at your interim grade report. You know what they say, 3 strikes and you're out. Explain yourself." And the subject header was, "Falling grades, you did it again."
Right.
So maybe there's a little pressure on Christopher to keep up his end of the academic bargain. I don't know.
But also, too, I think that sounds quite reasonable. If they're paying and he's just not giving a fuck and not applying himself.
Yeah, off he flies to UK for a London trip or whatever. Christopher then replied to his dad a few days later, and in his email to his dad, he blamed the college registrar, and he said in his email, "Obviously they are incorrect. My lowest grade that I got on anything was a B on a physics test. Don't jump to conclusions. I'm fine." Defensive.
Lies.
So there was also issues about money. Christopher had taken out loans to pay his tuition, but instead he bought himself a new bright yellow Jeep.
Oh, shit. Okay.
That's a punch in the arm, isn't it?
Yep.
Every time you see a yellow car, you have to punch someone in the arm, according to Michelle.
Well,
and my daughter now. Thanks very much.
I know.
There's a lot more yellow cars about. I've got a really bruised arm.
Yeah, and in Australia they call it spotto. Spotto.
Oh, is that it?
It's a thing.
Oh,
it's a
see,
thing.
I thought you'd made it up.
No, it's like yellow car.
Spotto.
You have to hit someone. In Australia, it's spotto, but you don't hit. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, are you meant to hit them?" My sister's like, no.
Okay, I'll have to tell my daughter.
Spotto.
No hitting. So the following autumn 2003 semester, University of Rochester officials forced Christopher to leave because of his poor grades. But when he was readmitted the following year, he took out a loan of $31,000 to cover his expenses. He was readmitted, I should add, because he forged some papers.
This guy's Dodge Central.
I know, this guy is all over it. However, 2 weeks before the attack, Dad Peter Porco confronted his son about his dishonesty in an email that read, "Did you forge my signature as a co-signer? What the hell are you doing? You should have called me to discuss it. I'm calling Citibank this morning to find out what you've done, and I'm going to tell them I'm not going to be on it as a co-signer."
Yep, good. He's got to find his own way in life. He can't just use the bank of mum and dad.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to teach him how to live his life properly. The following day, Peter Porco learned that Christopher had managed to get credit from Citibank to finance the Jeep Wrangler, and again listing his father as the guarantor. And once again, Peter wrote to Christopher, who'd been ignoring his parents' phone calls for weeks, and said, "I want to make it clear that if you misuse my credit again, I will have no choice but to file forgery affidavits to deny any responsibility. And this also applies to the Citibank college loan if you try to reactivate it or use my credit for another loan."
Yep.
And he ended it, the email, and this is where I said pin that. "While we may be disappointed in you, your mother and I still love you and care about your future."
It's mummy and daddy. They want the best for their kid. They just don't want their kid to be a little asshole and rip them off.
Looking on the outside, I don't think it is quite the Menendez situation, because those parents were apparently abusing those children.
Yes, okay.
For a long time.
Fair enough.
Before they murdered them.
Yes.
Christopher's brother Jonathan, when he took to the stand during Christopher's trial, he said that their relationship was strained between the brothers, and jurors noticed he had a very icy demeanour towards Christopher.
Okay.
Christopher told police that on the night of November 14, which is the night of his parents' murder, or attempted murder in his mother's case, he was asleep in the dormitory lounge back in Rochester and only woke up the next morning. But the theory from police is that he drove more than 3 hours to his parents' address in the early hours of November 15th to attack his parents. And a New York State Thruway toll collector outside Rochester said a yellow Jeep Wrangler with large tires passed through his station at about 10:45 p.m. on November 14. And a toll collector in Albany recalled the excessive speed of a yellow Jeep Wrangler approaching the toll booth shortly before 2 a.m. on November 15th. Caught. It's that bloody Jeep Wrangler, bright yellow. If you're going to go commit a murder, don't buy a yellow Jeep Wrangler.
No, just blend in. Have some shit old car that everyone has. But also, too,
a dark one.
3 hours. That's not far to travel. You can do that. Murder and then do the 3 hours back in a night and have people
Sure.
see you go to bed, then you sneak out and then sneak back in. And people think you've been there all night. So it's possible.
Yeah.
And that bloody Jeep Wrangler, of course.
Well, it was also seen on 4 security cameras at the University of Rochester, leaving the campus at 10:30 on November 14th and returning at 8:30 a.m. on November 15th.
Oh, my God.
And a neighbour of the Porco family in New York later testified at trial that they saw this damn yellow Jeep in the family's driveway on the evening of the attack, plus testimony of the university students saying no one saw Christopher sleeping in a dormitory lounge on the night of the attack.
This guy, is he a bit thick? Because all of this shit can be verified.
Well, exactly. But the thing is, Michelle, there was not one skerrit of physical evidence pointing to Christopher in that damn Jeep. Not a bit of blood, not a single strand of DNA or a fingerprint or anything, which you'd think after an attack like that, there'd be blood, there'd be hairs, there'd be tissue. There would be even of the minutest amount. They would have gone through that Jeep with a fine-tooth comb, plus the murder weapon.
Right. So do you remember earlier when you said, who watches true crime? Why do they do it? I bet this guy has watched many cop procedural or true crime, whatever it is, and he's learned you got to forensically clean your car afterwards, because he left at 10, got home at 8, take away 6 hours, plus you've got the murder. That's plenty of time for cleaning.
Well, he must have been a pretty good cleaner, and I forgot to tell you, Michelle, he worked part-time at a vet's surgery, and his boss, the vet, John Kearney, said in court that Christopher knows how to clean up after animal surgeries, which would have accounted for the lack of blood.
Right. There you go.
It's all fitting neatly into place, isn't it?
Yeah, he didn't watch, Cagney and Lacey to get his deets. He was working in a vet's, but
He worked
I
it,
reckon he
exactly,
cleaned it.
hands-on. And as you said earlier, Michelle, Mum Joan Porco, who did survive the attack, she's a witness.
yeah.
And while paramedics were tending to very badly injured Joan Porco at the time, police detective Christopher Bowdish asked her if she could identify her attacker. And he said, "Is it a family member?" She nodded, yes. Then he asked her if it had been her older son, Jonathan, who is a naval officer, and he was stationed in South Carolina at the time. She shook her head, no. So Bowdish asked if it was her son, Christopher, who was responsible. She reportedly nodded her head up and down to say yes. And she responded in this manner to several other separate questions.
Okay. So she's lucid enough to be able to distinguish between her sons and give yes and no answers.
But remember what happened to her husband, Peter, after his attack, right? What the brain does after such a traumatic injury. It's been damaged, right?
Yeah.
And as we know, we've discussed it before on this podcast, we don't know a lot about the brain function.
No.
Joan was very unwell. She was put into a medically induced coma. And then when she came out of that coma, she claimed not to be able to remember anything about the attack and felt one thing was for sure, and that was, no way was it Christopher.
What? Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
She sent her testimony to the trial in December 2004 in a video. She denied her son was involved, and 9 months later, she then wrote a letter to be published in the Albany Times Union paper where she urged authorities to leave Christopher alone and to search for Peter's real killer or killers so that he can rest in peace and her sons and her could live in safety.
Oh, my God. She's either been brainwashed or the brain has just erased the trauma.
Who knows what it is? Is blood thicker than water? I'm not sure. No one really knows, but she is convinced. Then there's another aspect to this, which Christopher's defense team raised during the trial. Peter has a connection to the mob.
Oh.
His uncle Frank Porco
Okay.
was the captain of the Bonanno crime family in New York City, and he had been jailed. So his defense team posited the theory that this could be retaliation for one of Uncle Frank's moiders.
Right.
But Uncle Frank, he did actually do time in prison, as I said. But it was for loan sharking and extortion, not murder.
Okay.
So it was a bit of a reach.
Not The Sopranos
No.
at all.
So going back to that wonderful day, August 10, 2006, Christopher Porco was found guilty of second-degree murder and attempted murder and sentenced to 50 years to life for each count. And he will be eligible for parole in December 2052. But of course he's appealed, and Mum Joan gave a sworn affidavit in March 2022 to convince the judge to grant him a new trial. And she said She felt he was innocent and that a gross miscarriage of justice had happened. She acknowledged that things were strange between them before the attack, but she was adamant that she and her husband Peter were never going to cut Christopher off. And she truly believes that justice has not been done. But most people acknowledge that Christopher was capable of, and in fact did, creep into his parents' home as they slept and swung that axe at their heads before driving back to Rochester in a planned attack.
Look, I've got a friend who was just in a very severe skiing accident. The other guy was in a coma and he ended up blacked out. He has no memory from just before the accident to after his first surgery because he broke both his legs. In that time,
Jesus,
I think he was skied into. He was airlifted an hour away, had massive surgery, not one single recollection. So the mind, the body, all of it does weird things. So I don't think you can take Joan's word for it. No, not at all. Not at all. Sorry, Joan.
But by that token, you can't take Joan's word for it in the immediate aftermath of the attack as well, when she confirmed that it was Christopher.
No, but I would be more likely to put some faith in that because she wasn't just randomly shaking her head or, yes, no to anything. It was very specific. But again, yes.
And there were other questions.
Yes.
And they were recorded. Look, there may not have been physical evidence, but there sure was enough evidence of that gross yellow Jeep to erase any doubt from the juror's mind. And if you think about it, his DNA would have been in the house in the form of fingerprints and hair strands because he was always there.
Yeah.
And it was actually the absence of other DNA that pointed the finger as well. So whether or not you think he's innocent or guilty, I mean, that's up to an individual's opinion. But on the whole, people on Reddit think he done it. And so did the jury.
Yes. I mean, the circumstantial evidence does point towards that for sure.
So thank you, Charlene, for sending in that mad story. What a head scratcher.
What a mind fuck, I would say.
Now that's a sweet ride.
Juice dropper.
Now that's a sweet ride.
Juice dropper.
I'm confused.
Don't drop your juice. Juice dropper.
So, I'm looking at something that is kind of a bit of a murder mystery. Or is it, Geordie?
Is it?
Is it? I don't know. You tell me.
Is it? No, you tell me.
I will say, we're not going back to August 10 for anything. Okay. We're going back to the evening of January 2nd, 2000.
Oh.
000. When 18-year-old Zebb Quinn finished his shift at a Walmart in Asheville, North Carolina. He finished around 9 o'clock at night. And like I said, it's January 2nd, 2000, the year 2000.
Okay, this is a big day because most people didn't expect for anything to work. It was the millennium bug.
Exactly. I think like everyone around the world, he was probably relieved that Y2K never happened. He maybe not had a hangover from the big celebrations into a new century. So it is quite a significant time in the world. But that night after work at the Walmart, Zebb met up with a co-worker and sort of friend called Robert Jason Owens, calling him Jason. I don't know if that's right. I call him Jason, but I don't know if he was actually called Jason or Robert, but we're calling him Jason. The two of them had planned to drive separately to look at a car. Obviously, very fancy Mitsubishi Eclipse, not quite a yellow Jeep.
Eclipse. Have we not spoken about one of those before?
Have we? We maybe.
I feel like we have.
Could have. I'm not sure. So many cars, so many murders. Zebb was interested in buying this Mitsubishi Eclipse, and I guess maybe Jason knew about cars. That's why Zebb wanted him to go with him. And there is CCTV footage that confirms the pair left the Walmart parking lot in their own cars. And I will say, Geordie, where's all the CCTV footage in your story? You know, I would think that there would have been more.
There was CCTV.
There would have been more confirming that, you know, he had driven to various...
There was.
Good. So the TV, CCTV...
And I told you about it.
Sorry, the road CCTV. Yes, there was some at the tolls, but it also was about the toll.
And entering and leaving the university campus. And then there was people who'd seen. So I don't have CCTV on my street, but the neighbours saw his Jeep on the drive.
Well, that's incriminating enough. But the CCTV footage, like I said, confirmed that these two left the Walmart parking lot in their own cars. Just 10 minutes later, Zebb was captured on CCTV near a nearby petrol station. He was kind of agitated. And on that CCTV footage, you see him receiving a page on his pager.
Pager, of course.
It is the 90s, basically.
Oh, yeah.
I know, it's
2000s.
basically still the 90s, right? Texting
Yeah.
was kind of in its infancy. Dude's got a pager, which is ridiculous when we think about it now, but high tech at the time. After he got this page, he quickly returned to his car. And according to Jason Owens, Zebb became frantic after viewing the message and said, "I gotta go," and apparently drove off erratically. And he also, in the process of driving off like a madman, rear-ended Jason's truck. So that was the last confirmed sighting of Zebb Quinn. He basically disappeared without a trace. But
Wow.
there's more to this story, Geordie.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, bit of a mystery situation. And what happened next is a bit weird. So as we know, Zebb never returned home that night. And at this point, people don't really know that he's missing. But the next day, Jason checked himself into a local hospital, claiming he'd been in a car accident shortly after he and Zebb had gone their separate ways, although the injuries he presented with at the hospital were not consistent with typical car crash injuries.
Right.
No one saw this crash, no CCTV. Then, 2 days later, someone made a phone call to the Walmart that Zebb worked at, claiming to be Zebb, saying, "I'm sick, I'm not coming in." But clearly it wasn't Zebb.
No.
And the person who took the call knew Zebb, and they're like, "That's not Zebb's voice." Later in the investigation, it was discovered that the call had come from a phone registered to none other than Jason Owens.
Oh.
But when Jason was questioned about it, he did admit to making the call, but he said Zebb asked him to make that call.
Right. How?
My bullshitometer here
it's
is
ping, ping, pinging.
off the scale.
Yeah.
Yes, ping, ping, ping. His family and investigators, they also were like, bullshit on that explanation. And they suspected at this stage that Zebb was in trouble somewhere and that Jason knew more than he was letting on, because at this point, it's not really a murder or a death. They're just thinking he's missing and Jason knows something about it. But then this whole thing took an even weirder turn, because 2 weeks after Zebb had finished that shift at the Walmart, his actual car, a 1990 Mazda Protégé, was discovered abandoned in the parking lot of a local barbecue restaurant. Inside the car was some strange shit. There was a hotel key card, which they never found the hotel that it belonged to. A half-drunk bottle of soda water.
Soda? Who drinks soda water? Just Nana.
I know, gross. Not without vodka.
She used to drink it to make her burp.
Well,
When she gave up on the vodka, she just used to have it so that she would burp for some reason. And those burps were massive.
oh my God. Well, I would never drink soda water unless you've got the vodka with it, right? And a bit
Yeah.
of lime. But that was in the car. I think soda water. Do they mean soda? Maybe it was soda pop of
Maybe
some
it's
kind.
soda. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Like
it's some kind of soda.
Fanta, Coke.
Yeah, that makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. What young person has a bottle of soda water in there?
Yeah, they probably mean
In
a
their
half-drunk
car.
bottle of fizzy drink.
Fizzy drink. Yeah.
Yeah, fizzy drink.
Fizzy drink.
There was a woman's plastic hair clip in the car.
Ooh. Like a claw clip or something.
Yeah, I don't know, some kind of clip. Weirdest of all, Geordie, there was a live puppy
Don't.
in that car.
No.
Yes, a puppy
Ah.
fucking in that car.
What?
And apparently none of this shit belonged to Zebb. And then gets even weirder because scrawled on the rear windscreen in lipstick was the word hotel.
What? Now, this is intriguing, if nothing else.
Puppy was okay, by the way.
Thank God. That was my next question.
Yeah, puppy was fine. And actually, I did read that I think one of the investigators ended up adopting that puppy.
Oh.
Despite being one of the last people to see Zebb Quinn alive, Jason Owens was not immediately charged in connection with Zebb's disappearance. And in fact, for years, Zebb's case went cold and remained a cold case. And all the while, Jason Owens was giving inconsistent statements to the police, but never enough evidence to properly link him to the disappearance. But investigators always considered Jason a person of interest, especially because of the strange phone call he made to Walmart, his dubious story about that car crash that no one saw happen, but without a body or forensic evidence, the case was kind of fucked. And this obviously left Zebb's family in limbo about what really happened that night. Until March 2015.
Oh.
When Jason Owens...
That's how many years later?
Yes, this is 15 years later. Yeah. Jason Owens was arrested for the murders of a guy called JT Codd, who was a local contractor in Asheville, and JT's wife, Cristie Codd.
Oh, God.
Who, trigger warning, was actually pregnant at the time.
Oh, no.
So sad. It started when the Codds were reported missing, and Jason Owens quickly became the primary suspect. And I'm not sure why or what his involvement was with the Codds, but the police were all over him. And after his arrest, investigators went to his property and discovered not only had Jason dismembered the bodies of JT and Cristie.
Oh, God.
He'd also attempted to burn their remains in a wood stove on his property.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's a horror show, right? And of course, the spotlight is now on Jason for this grim crime.
Yeah.
And people in Asheville started thinking about Jason's past and the unresolved mystery of what the fuck had happened to Zebb Quinn. So, during the investigation into the Codds murders, Jason reportedly made statements that connected him to Zebb's disappearance, but he was suggesting it may have been foul play. And then, in July 2017, Jason was officially indicted for Zebb's murder, 17 years after Zebb had vanished. But before all of that, there was this whole other bit of mystery, because at the heart of Zebb Quinn's disappearance is another name that surfaced early in the investigation, and that was Misty Taylor. Her name was Misty.
Yeah, that's a
which
nice name.
I think is... oh my God, I think it's ridiculous.
I like it.
Misty.
Yeah.
Play Misty for me.
I love
Yeah.
that film.
I don't know that film.
Put that on the list.
Okay, that's a wreck.
Clint Eastwood. Very good.
Yes, right. So apparently Zebb had been infatuated with Misty in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. And according to Zebb's family and friends, the pair were kind of getting a bit close. Zebb was absolutely smitten with her. Thing is, Misty, she was hanging out with Zebb, but she had a boyfriend.
Uh-oh.
A guy called Wesley Smith. Worse than that, he was a bit of a kind of jealous type.
Oops.
He also had a reputation for being abusive, controlling, and violent.
Mm-mm.
So Zebb's hanging out with Misty, and it did not go down well with Wesley. And obviously, Wesley, if he's that kind of character, he's not happy about it. So the reason for bringing Misty Taylor into this is because it goes back to that pager message that Zebb got just minutes before he vanished, which police think ties directly to Misty, because phone records show that the page came from the home of Zebb's aunt, although his auntie insists she never sent Zebb a pager message. But investigators later discovered that Misty, Wesley Smith, and Jason Owens all somehow had connections to that phone line that was belonging to his aunt.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that's possible. I don't understand that tech, but that's what I read.
Okay.
Of course, this raised suspicions that the page could have been a setup intended to lure Zebb away under false pretenses. Now, Jason Owens, who had been with Zebb at the time, claimed that Zebb left in a hurry after receiving the message, but it was never clarified who sent the pager message or why. But what the police were getting at was that someone may have used Misty's name on a fake pager message to manipulate Zebb into a trap, aka maybe Wesley.
Right.
So Misty was actually interviewed a lot of times by authorities, but was never charged in connection with the case. And over the years, she denied any involvement with Zebb's disappearance. But of course, there are theories flying around that Misty's role in the mystery, mainly because of her growing relationship with Zebb in the weeks before he disappeared, alongside the fact that she was in an actual relationship with Wesley, who was violent and possessive. All these theories are that this was a weird love triangle gone wrong. But people think Misty was used as bait, whether knowingly or not.
Right.
Now, Zebb had apparently told friends that he believed Misty was scared of her boyfriend and needed help. Some friends even remember Zebb getting all hero-y and saying he was going to protect Misty. The theory goes that Jason Owens, possibly along with Misty or Wesley or both, used this kind of hero complex to lure Zebb into this vulnerable situation with going to see the Eclipse car. So could the mysterious page that Zebb got before he vanished been a play on his concern for Misty? Because, like we know, Zebb apparently left in a panic, as if kind of responding to an emergency. But another theory is that Misty may have played a more direct role in Zebb's disappearance, because if she knew that Zebb had feelings for her and stupidly, for whatever reason, told Wesley about Zebb, it's possible that Wesley saw Zebb as a bit of a threat or a rival, and then to protect herself from Wesley's temper, Misty then set up Zebb. So she didn't get the brunt of the anger of Wesley, because I don't know what this guy's capable of.
He sounds like a real catch.
Oh, yes. I don't think they're together. I don't understand why Jason was roped into getting Zebb into a secluded place. But I want to know, where the hell is that pager and what the fuck did the message actually say?
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone can confirm where the pager is or what the message said. The theory is that it was bait. Thing is, after Zebb vanished, Misty did deliberately avoid going public with any information. She didn't have any interviews about her involvement with Zebb, and some people have interpreted her silence as a fear of speaking out, but other people see it as guilt.
Right.
You know, whenever she's asked about it, she just says, I don't know what happened. To be honest, there's actually no physical evidence tying her to the crime.
Yeah.
Just a few theories. Still, when we think about this, the pager message was sent from a phone linked to her. Like I said, Zebb, Jason, and Wesley all had access to the phone that was linked to sending that pager. Plus, there was a female hair clip in that car.
And the lipstick.
Along with that puppy and the lipstick. Exactly. Thing is, though, without a confession, with no direct evidence, Misty was kind of let off the hook here.
Okay.
Wesley Smith, on the other hand, who was Misty Taylor's actual boyfriend, obviously has been viewed with suspicion by, police and the public. And after Zebb's disappearance, a few of Zebb's friends said that Zebb had told them about Wesley, saying Misty was in an abusive relationship, he was going to help her, making him a bit of a target. So that's Wesley's motive, right? Because this guy has motive and opportunity. He also has, that weird connection to that mysterious pager message. And as I mentioned earlier, the message did come from Zebb's aunt's home. She was adamant she never sent anything. And I don't know, like I said, that tech is weird to me. Was it a staged text? Did Wesley send it? Was Wesley so threatened by Zebb and his interest in Misty that he killed him? But there is, to be fair, no direct link between Wesley and Jason, actually. More than the three of them had access to that phone line. But I feel like Asheville is a small town where everyone knows everyone a little bit. But Jason's conviction for that double murder of the Codds, it does point the finger to the fact that Jason, obviously, he killed two people. Did he help disappear Zebb was Wesley and Misty involved in this.
Well, clearly he hasn't got a fear about getting his hands dirty.
No, sir. The other thing is, Wesley Smith apparently was never properly investigated in relation to Zebb's disappearance. But just when you think, okay, all these theories, whatever, we know that Jason was arrested, the case did take a weird turn in 2017 because a grand jury in Buncombe County, North Carolina, did finally indict Jason for first-degree murder in relation to Zebb. And as we know, Jason was the last person to see Zebb alive. His alibi was always shady at best, but the Codd's double homicide made them re-examine Jason's potential involvement in Zebb's disappearance.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Do we know what the motive for their murder was?
No. No. I didn't look that up. I mean, that in itself is fucking horrific.
Yeah.
I think that he knew them. I think they were friends. So, yeah, it was pretty shocking.
So friends are easy come, easy go for Jason.
Well, it does seem to be like that. But like I said earlier, Jason reportedly made incriminating statements about Zebb's case when he was being investigated for the Codd's murders. The details of those statements about Zebb have never been fully released to the public, but police have apparently confirmed that Jason gave information that led to probable cause for the murder charge. It was kind of the break that detectives needed to kind of put this case back in the spotlight. But the thing was, Jason was already in prison, awaiting trial for the Codd's murders. Prosecutors had said that while Zebb's body had not been found, they believed that they had sufficient evidence that Jason had killed Zebb intentionally and with premeditation. So there's a lot of information that's not being released to the public about this case. This was fantastic for the family because apparently murder indictments without a body are pretty rare and they require strong circumstantial or testimonial evidence, which I guess Jason had given a little bit of evidence that he was involved, and there was a lot of circumstantial. But despite the indictment, Jason has never publicly confessed to Zebb's murder, and much of the evidence presented to the grand jury remains to this day sealed. So there was speculation that he may have struck a deal to share information about Zebb's case in exchange for leniency in regard to the Codd's double murder, but that's never been confirmed. It's also believed that police may have recovered new forensic or digital evidence linking Jason to Zebb's disappearance when they searched his property in 2015 when they were there for the Codd murder investigation. For Zebb Quinn's family, I imagine this would have been kind of a relief, but also a new fresh cut into the pain of what had gone on, because after so many years of uncertainty, yes, they were a little bit closer to justice, but without any closure, because Zebb's remains have never been located.
Yeah.
Jason has never revealed the full truth of what really happened that night. But this indictment was a clear message that the case had not been forgotten and that someone was finally being held accountable.
For sure.
After the 2017 indictment of Jason for the murder of Zebb, and because of the severity of the crimes committed against the Codds, Jason accepted a plea deal in order to avoid the death penalty, and he is serving a minimum of 59.5 years in prison. But following that conviction, the case against Jason in regards to Zebb's murder/disappearance, it's unresolved. And as of today, 2025, no trial date has been publicly confirmed, and much of the information about the case has been kept sealed.
Why?
Well, the prosecutors say they believe they have enough evidence to prove Zebb was murdered and that Jason was responsible, even without a body. But I think they're probably weighing up the practical challenges of pursuing a second trial against a man who's already got life behind bars, especially with no physical evidence. There's also talk online that Jason is withholding full details of what happened to Zebb to maybe use as leverage in the future. And perhaps that's why they're not going forward with Zebb's case. But the thing is, I guess this leaves Zebb's family are still living in limbo, not knowing what really happened to their son. And as for Jason Owens, he's rotting in prison for the Codd murders, while the murder charge for Zebb Quinn technically still stands, but with no resolution. I guess what's good is that Zebb Quinn's case is no longer a cold case. It's an active investigation with a named suspect, but there's not going to be a trial and the guy's behind bars, and it is what it is. So if there's any new updates, I'll let you know.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks, Michelle. That was quite a twisty-turny thing. And do you know what? The car thing didn't go any further, but I remember now what that car was related to. It was last year's episode. Let me just remember. It was about scams. And you told us a story about a debt collector.
Right.
Do you remember? Because then we had a chat about the car with some listeners as well.
Well, that was about the couple who basically killed the debt collector and they wanted to get that fancy new car. And we're like, what a shit car. Why would you kill for that car? I mean, you know, each to their own. Some people want a bright yellow Jeep. Cars are cars.
Speaking of cars, I don't know why I've gone from that segue. It's not speaking of. There is no segue.
Okay.
Recently, you know where we have entered the British Podcasting Awards yet again?
Yes.
And I put out a social media post asking our listeners to please let us know what their favourite stories were.
Yes.
That they've listened to. It came a little late for me to be able to get the entry done. But I did have some listeners write in, and of course it was Charlene, happy chappy. And by the way, on Patreon, we're going to have a little listeners area. For those of you who are our patrons, you can write in, you can send pics that you'd like to post up there. At the moment, we've got a spotlight on Mummy Maxo, I believe, because she's had some interactions with birds.
She did. If you want to giggle, head over to the Patreon.
And other Patreons, if you would like to send in your pictures or messages or funny anecdotes or videos for our Spotlight Corner, please do. But going back to the messages we had, there was one from Lucy Beacon.
Yes, I was just trying to look that up. But yes, you've got it. Good.
So I believe that she was into it was Who Shot Kenneth McElroy? It was actually Jane Beacon. Jane Beacon wrote in to say that her favourite episode was Who Shot Kenneth McElroy and the Disappearance of Nicholas Barclay. Both had me gasping, she said. You've got my vote, gals. Well, let's just make sure we do actually have your vote, Jane, when it comes to time. We'll definitely hit you up. We had Pat Matthew, who said she's biased, but definitely the one where Christabel Rosecord Matthew stepped in to replace you for an episode because that's her daughter.
Yes.
And then we had Shari wrote in and she said the Carrie backstory and the horrid episode about John Sweeney and Delia Obama. Both your stories, Michelle.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
And we also had Charlene. I forgot to tell you what Charlene's was. Her favourites were the Belle Gibson, Madeleine McCann episode.
Oh.
Was her fave. So a lot of mysterious mysteries.
Yes.
Missing people seem to be the theme there. And Carrie.
Okay.
Interesting. Guys, you can always write in and suggest stories or suggest angles or suggest themes for us as well.
We love it when you do.
It helps.
It does.
But listen, Michelle, thank you so much for that story on Zebb. What was his last name again?
Quinn.
Zebb Quinn. Zebb Quinn. It was a bit sad, actually.
Yeah,
because
it is.
There was no real positive kind of, I want to know the end now.
There is no end. We don't know what happened to him. The poor guy thought he was, having this potential relationship with Misty. And then was that the reason why he got knocked off? Where is he? Where's his body?
Yeah,
what
who
really
knows?
happened?
And why was there a puppy in the car? I mean, that's still going to haunt me.
I know. And the lipstick and the hair clip. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's just strange.
A lot of questions unanswered.
Yes.
I hate that.
I know, me too.
But listen, I think it's time now for us to bid each other farewell. And you guys, you eavesdroppers, thank you for hanging out with us.
And until next time, there really is only 3 things left to say.
Wherever you are.
Whatever you do, just keep
eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping.
Eavesdroppin'.